welcome to this live stream. It is another stream of consciousness, which I hope that you guys like and enjoy. It's really fun to make them and to just kind of talk about things that are topical or talk about things that are important or just to talk and gab about some stuff. That's what I love about live chat, is that I'm able to respond to you in real time. And so that's what I love about live chat. Today wasn't really an assuming day. Yesterday was my birthday. I spent it shopping. I had a great time. I really enjoyed it. Spent some time with my family, and it was a lot of fun. And I was just reminded a lot about something I talk about a lot, which is being grateful for the moments that I got to experience over this past weekend. I even have another experience coming up on Friday, which I'm really excited for. I'm going to Ari Shafir's comedy show in San Antonio, so I'm very excited about that. But a lot of things that there are going on in my life have seemed to be stop and go, right? Like there's been moments and times recently where sometimes I just don't want to do anything. Sometimes I'm just like everybody else. There's times when I don't feel like talking to people, or there's times where I feel like, oh, I just kind of want to do my own thing. But immediately what I realize in that is that sometimes that's a very selfish thing to want to do. It's a very selfish thing for me, at least, or how it feels sometimes, is to run away from the light that I'm trying to create, the light that I'm trying to emanate, the light that I'm trying to foster in this group. But hey, it's okay, it's cool. Life is up and down, and I was able to just kind of get over it, did an edible, and was like, okay, I'm back. Just needed to kind of process some stuff a little bit, and it's totally okay, and it's probably best, honestly, to process things alone. Not every time, but sometimes the initial processing might probably be best if served alone, if done alone, just so that way anything that you're feeling that could be hurtful to somebody else won't have to be experienced. You'll just kind of save yourself a lot of torture. Hi Paolo, how are you? Thank you. So being able to process things on your own is something that's incredibly important, and something that's incredibly important to the experiment of life. That's what we're on. We're on an experiment of life. We're on an experiment of how is our life going to go? What are we going to do? Are we going to be comfortable and confident doing it? Are we going to be happy? These are lots of questions that my clients ask themselves. These are lots of questions that people ask themselves on a typical basis. Am I going to be happy? Well, when it comes to happiness, happiness is a complete and total choice. And as much as I hate to say that, it's unfortunately true. Happiness is a complete and total choice. You can choose to be happy at any moment of any day, even on the worst day. Happiness is a choice. You choose your moods, you choose your feelings, maybe not the initial reaction that happens internally. And hopefully from the internal it doesn't become external and come into a place of where it's going to hurt other people. Because that's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to better ourselves and be able to have our own process. And sometimes what you do need is a coach, or you need a counselor, or you need a friend. You need someone in your corner. And that's a lot about what I do. I'm the person in the corner, I'm the cheerleader, just not in the outfit. A lot of times that's all you really need is a listening ear, or sometimes you just need someone to kind of bounce ideas off of. And that's my purpose. That's exactly what I do. And I'm really happy to say that I've changed lives, and I'm really happy to say that I've seen this process happen over and over again. That when you get to a place of gratitude, that when you get to a place of wanting to be better for yourself and not for others, that's where stuff really starts to change for you and really starts to happen. I know this really changed a lot for me, especially over the last few years. Everything's just been kind of a blur, and a lot of things have been really different. But in this first year of having a YouTube channel, I was really, appreciative of it. I didn't know how it was going to go. I already had my coaching clients, so I was like, well, YouTube is kind of something different. And seeing how it's grown and seeing how things are just growing in general, I needed to take some time off, and I did, and Everyone was very kind and polite about that. And I've really enjoyed being able to reach out to people that I wouldn't normally have a reach to, people that I wouldn't normally be able to kind of share insights with and show them like, hey, I've been through it too. I've been through a lot of different life experiences and I'm here and I can definitely help you through them. And that's the great thing about coaching with me, is that it's like having someone there on call in a way, depending on which package you choose. But, being in the middle of my birthday and then still having some more celebrations coming up, especially on Friday for everyone, don't forget to get your loved one a Valentine. If you're single, get yourself something. Celebrate this day because it's a day of celebrating love in all of its capacities. If you have kids, get them something too. It can just be one of those little like candy necklaces. I remember back in the day, you could go into a drugstore and you could find candy cigarettes. I don't know if you guys remember those, but you could go in and get candy cigarettes, and then the candy tasted awful, but you just looked cool because it looked like you were holding a cigarette. And then they got rid of those, which is probably for the best. We had a lot of mixed messages in the 90s and the early 2000s. But being on this path, being on this journey towards wellness, being on this journey towards improving ourselves and improving the lives of those around us, that's something that I think a lot of people can get behind, and that's something that I think a lot of people can identify with wanting to do, wanting to have a change, wanting to see the change occur in them, and also seeing the change occur in their lives, in themselves. Now, it's not always easy to be a proponent of change. In fact, it comes with a lot of fear. Fear is such a big component of a lot of things for us, because we all get scared really easily of certain things. Some people, even the most bravest people, the reason that they're brave is not because they don't experience fear, but because they experience fear, they overcome it, and they keep on doing whatever it is that they're doing. That's what makes a person brave. It's not being fearless. There's not going to be a point in time, unless you're, really out there and next level and really on top of your game. But there's really going to be a point in time when you're just going to feel like, okay, everything's where I need it to be. Because so many times we're looking for that next thing instead of being able to be happy in the present, being able to have gratitude in the present, being able to see like, hey, a lot of things in my life are improving, a lot of things in my life are changing, but that's because it came down to me. What it came down to is that I made the decision, I made the choice, and it just kind of snowballs from there. When you make the decision and you make the choice to make a change, you have no idea where it can lead you and where it can go, and that's why life is just one great experiment. What we're doing is experimenting on ourselves to see what brings us happiness, what brings us peace, what brings us inevitably, a form of peace, a form of self-love. How can I love myself is something I hear from a lot of people. And it's not something that just happens overnight, and it's definitely something that we don't experience a lot of, or we're told that it's okay, is because a lot of people received the message when they were younger that to love yourself or to do things for yourself and not for other people all the time is a conceited thing. So there's some people in the world that think it's conceited for you to wear makeup, or they think that it's wrong for you to put a little bit of self-care into your, life. And that doesn't mean that that person is someone you shouldn't talk to. It just means that they have a different idea of themselves. They don't see themselves and see this journey and see this path as something as they want to do. And that happens sometimes. Rarely do I ever match with a client that isn't willing to do the work. All of my clients have been willing to do the work and have been willing to open their minds up to something that's a little bit different. And that's why, again, I talk so much about the gene keys in human design, is because I've seen the change in my life. I've seen this pathway open up. And it hasn't always been easy, of course. Now, there's always going to be difficult things that come up in your life. You can choose to see things as an opportunity instead of seeing them as something negative or bad. Allowing yourself to see yourself change is something that's incredible. So many people are stuck on stagnation, and remaining stagnant for a period of time, that can be helpful for some people. Some people just kind of need a break. Some people just need to kind of be able to contemplate and be with themselves and learn more about themselves. And there's other people that, they learn through doing. They learn through being around other people. They learn through experiencing other people and having people experience them. There's also people out there who just prefer to kind of be in the back, be a wallflower, not be someone that's a big proponent of change, but maybe is open to ideas. There's a lot of different kinds of people out in the world. And it's really hard to generalize all of them or to have them in just certain categories. And that's why I love so much the gene keys, is because what it does is it really, in human design, it really opens you up to all the possibilities that you have in your life. It opens you up to see things from a different perspective. It opens you up to see things from a more whole perspective as well, especially when what you're doing is you're simply reading, you're simply learning about yourself, you're simply getting a body graph chart, you're simply learning about the gene keys. These things are something that it's almost like the doctrine for cult of wellness now, and that's simply because it has been so incredibly useful and helpful to so many people, and I've seen it transform a lot of different lives. And that's simply by following your path, following what you're authentic to. It's really easy to not understand our authentic selves, or to even want to be our authentic selves, because we think, oh, I don't like myself authentically. A lot of people think that way, and it's something that I really want to change, because you don't have to come from a place of not liking yourself authentically. You can actually easily come from a place of liking yourself once you're able to understand the reasons that you do the behaviors that you're doing. A lot of time we don't want to take responsibility for our behaviors. We don't want to acknowledge the fact that we played a part in the behaviors that have made us the way that we are today. We don't want to acknowledge the fact that we have created our own habits, and that's why we are the way that we are today. A lot of these things were also a part of other people doing things that affected us, right? Maybe someone said something one time and it just kind of stuck with you forever. Or maybe a situation occurred and it's just something that kind of stuck with you forever. Our memories are so different, and the way that we remember things, it's kind of a lot like with, I think it was a movie from back in the day. It had to do with that Mandela effect. So the whole Mandela effect thing was, some people remember things a different way, other people remember things a different way. And what does that do to society? And obviously what we saw on the internet was, it doesn't really divide people, it just really helps people see that, hey, there's so many different perspectives, there's so many different ways to kind of look at the world. There's a reason for why did people care if you saw the dress as black and gold or blue and black. Why does this matter? Well, it does matter. The way that you perceive things, that matters a lot to how you're going to live your life. And if you don't like yourself, and if you can't accept yourself authentically, then where do you think you're going to be able to go? Are you going to be able to love effectively? Are you going to be able to love other people? Oh, hey, Jenna. There's another Jenna in the room. Hey. So it's all very different, right? Everyone has differing opinions. There's really no one way of being. There's a lot of different ways of being. But the great thing about learning more about yourself is that you're going to be in the opportunity to learn more about others as well. And when we're learning more about others, when we're in a position to learn, when we're in a position to really learn anything, that needs to come from a grateful space. That needs to come from a space of, okay, I'm being given a gift, an opportunity to learn something that maybe I didn't know before. So how am I going to treat the situation? I'm going to treat it as a positive. I'm going to treat it as something that I am excited about. I'm going to treat it as something that I know I want to do because I want to be a part of changing my life. And there's some people that aren't. There's some people that aren't going to go on the journey with you. There's some people that are going to be disillusioned. There's some people that aren't going to believe in change. Even though our cells are changing every day, we change every day. Our weight fluctuates. The way that we appear changes. The way that we feel changes. There's nothing that's permanent. And in that impermanence, what we're going to find is that we're capable of a lot of things. We're capable of so much change, of so much difference, of making a difference, of becoming a difference, of becoming role models for what we want the future to be, of being able to do that, of being able to transcend, or of understanding that that might be in your path and life way, because that is something that the Gene Keys talks about. And human design. So what they talk about with the lines, right? So I'm a 4/6, which means I'm an opportunist and a role model. Now, according to human design, I'm not going to really hit my peak until I'm about 50. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't think so. I think I'm going to hit it before that. But basically, this big life journey starts at 35, and then at about 50 is when you're settled, you have stuff together. That was my reading for the Gene Keys, and I was like, yeah, I can kind of agree with, or I'm sorry, with human design. I was like, I can kind of get behind that, I suppose. I understand that that's closer to a retirement age, so, you know, I myself was very skeptical. I was like, is this going to be like another Scientology type of thing? Because there's so much writing and there's so much reading that you can do, and there's so much to learn about it. And I didn't find myself overwhelmed. I just found myself with wanting more information and with wanting to be able to understand it, because it really does have its own dictionary in a way. It really does have its own terminologies. It really does have its own way of penetrating the mind and penetrating the soul. I mean, it's talking about changing your DNA and the ways that you can do that through the ways that you think, through the ways that you see things, through understanding that there's always going to be shadows, but out of shadows come opportunities to turn things into gift and into cities. So it just depends, right? It's not something that's for everyone, and it's not something that every single one of my clients would use, but it's something that I have found transformational. I have found it to be so incredibly helpful. And so that's why I talk about it so much on my channel, is because I'm such a big fan, I'm such a big proponent of it. And that's why we do the readings, because I want everyone to have access to this information as well. And you can also go to thegenekeys.com and you can take classes to kind of get to know more your EQ, your SQ, your IQ. That's for the Gene Keys. But just kind of figuring out, like, where is your genius? Where is your love? Where is your prosperity? What's your emotional intelligence like? What's the easiest way to kind of deal with you? And that's what's so interesting, is that it really does give you a way of how to crawl out of that shadow, or how to crawl out of a darker place that you may be in. That's what I love about the Gene Keys. It really gives you the opportunity through language and through the poetry of the wording in it. It really does. It really makes you think about, wow, like, I can be anything I want to be. And what I am right now is perfectly okay and perfectly natural. And there's a way to get out of this feeling. There's a way to transmute. There's a way to transform. There's always a way to not stay the same. There's always a way to change. There's always a way to overcome things that maybe you didn't think you could overcome. And I know that we've all had that time in our lives where we've had something big happen, something big change our lives. And maybe in the moment we didn't know how to handle it. Maybe in the moment it was just too much for us, or maybe we did handle it with precision and with finesse, which is hopefully where you would be. But maybe you handled it somewhere in the middle, right? Just something different, something that inspired a change in you, something that kind of woke you up, something that was, yes, maybe difficult, but something that ultimately needed to happen. These things will happen to you in your life over and over again to kind of wake you up, to kind of help you see, like, look what you have, look at what you've been given. There's a lot of people that can't do what I'm doing because there's a lot of people that don't have an iPhone. There's a lot of people that don't have a microphone. There's a lot of people that don't have a house that they can live in. There's a lot of people that don't have the ring lights that I have. There's a lot of people that don't have any of the stuff that I have. And yet they're still able to find their happiness and to find their joy. And it might be because they don't have as many options. That's always something to consider. Or maybe it's just simply because they went through it as well. They've experienced poverty. I've experienced poverty before in a really great way. In a way that taught me, okay, this is why your work is so important, and this is why what you do is so important, and this is why you need to value your time appropriately. You need to value what you're doing appropriately. You need to value your body and your emotions, and you need to value yourself in your entirety. And that's not something that's always easy to come into. That's not something that's always easy to understand, is, well, why do I have to see the worth in myself? Why can't somebody else see it for me? Well, that's part of the problem, is the inability to take responsibility for the fact that you do have to be able to see yourself as a valuable and worthy person if you expect others to see you in that same light. Sometimes the way that we're treated is very much because we're projecting a certain thing onto other people. Sometimes it's just other people and their own messes, and you can choose whether to allow that to affect you, or you can choose not to allow it to affect you. Or you can choose somewhere in the middle. There's always somewhere in the middle, somewhere where, okay, maybe something bothers you, but you're not going to let it derail your day. And that's ultimately where I would hope a lot of people would be, is that something can happen, or even something major can happen, but you're not going to let it derail your life. Or maybe you've been allowing it to. Maybe you've been allowing something that's big in your life to derail your entire life, to give you an excuse to not better yourself, or to give you an excuse to even worsen yourself. And there's some people that do that. They fall into these traps, they fall into these pits. And when people fall into traps, into pits, they become very reactionary. You really get to see how a person is when you see them in their reactionary way, when they're not responsive but when they're reactionary, because then you get to see really how dark does the cave go, or how is this going to work out, right? Seeing somebody when they're upset and how they handle it is such a big component as to their emotional maturity and into their honestly, mainly their emotional maturity. How long do you stay mad for? Do you stay mad for a long time? Do you hold grudges? Where does that come from, do you think? I'm pretty sure that it comes from a place of fear. A place of fear, a place of not wanting to be rejected. And it's so funny because we're rejecting ourselves every single day when we're not thinking more highly of ourselves, when we're not valuing ourselves enough. We're really rejecting ourselves in all the ways. And sometimes people will reject themselves before other people can reject them. And that's their coping mechanism, and that's their way of dealing with things. Their way of dealing is, oh, I think someone's going to leave, so I'm going to leave before they leave. And it's something that can be really manipulative, but it's something that's also just something that people do. This isn't something that not a lot of people do. A lot of people do this. A lot of people will pull away because they're afraid of the rejection. That's that fear component. They're afraid of a feeling. They're afraid of an emotion. They're afraid of a situation. They're afraid of loss. That's why it's so important that when we grieve things, that we grieve things in the right way. And that right way is going to be different for everyone. The way that you grieve is really dependent on the kind of person that you are, the kind of work that you've done in your life on yourself. The way that you grieve is indicative of your emotional maturity, obviously. But it's also indicative of being able to control your own emotions, of being able to control that immediate impulse of wanting to react. Especially when people lose things, when people lose people, when people lose time, when people lose money, when people lose energy, they tend to react to that. Sometimes they are able to come from a place of responsiveness, but a lot of times they're going to be reactionary because something bad happened. And whenever something bad happens or a person perceives something bad to happen, they tend to become reactionary. Now, does this mean that you have to stay this way forever? Absolutely not. It's just something that it's a state that a lot of people tend to be in. And they don't even recognize it, they don't even see it, they don't even understand it. They're like, why am I so unhappy with all of these things, even though we're living in one of the best ages that it is to live in? We have so much stuff that people before us didn't have, and yet we're all so unhappy sometimes. And I'm like, well, it can do with a lot of different things. For example, it just rained not that long ago, otherwise I was going to be outside doing this. But it just rained, and so it's wet all over the floor. I was like, I don't want to slip. Knowing me, I'll probably slip and fall or do something silly. But I also understood the value of my time and the value of my energy and the value of my money, right? When I'm doing stuff like this, what I'm doing is I'm trying to send positive wavelengths out into the world. What I'm trying to do is to get you away from living in that self-loathing, living in that anger, living in that fear. Because it is possible to transcend fear altogether. Maybe not all the time, but it is possible to transcend it. It's possible to transcend a lot of things. And you don't have to just see things in three. You don't have to see things just as the shadow, the gift, the city. You can see things in a lot of different perspectives. But again, that's what I love about the translations that people can make of their own pathway, of their own journey, of their own experiment, which is your life. Your life is your own experiment. It always is. All the decisions that you've made have led you to this point. All the people that you've experienced, whether positive or negative, has led you to this point. It's possible things are predetermined, predestined. It's also possible that our behavior has an immediate effect on whatever is going on, whatever is happening. I know that our mental state definitely does, and finding a way to be a little bit more contemplative, right? Taking the time to really think about something, understanding that yes, we have today, we have the now, the present is what we have. We're not guaranteed a future. Yes, we have a past, but sometimes people fill that up with regret. And that's not the way that we want things for anybody, of course. We want people to be able to see themselves for who they can be. We want people to be able to respond to things in a way that's loving and caring and kind, in a way that is going to be beneficial to other people, in a way that's going to help other people grow. Because when you see a kindness, when you see something, usually it'll stick with you. Now, oftentimes we become so used to the things that we have that we forget to be grateful. We forget about the kindnesses that people have shown us, and we get so focused on the kindnesses that other people are experiencing. And a lot of people are going to ask, well, why isn't this happening for me? Or why isn't something occurring for me? Why am I in this waiting game? Why am I having to think about things so much? Why am I having to experience discomfort so much? And discomfort is a big aspect of change. You'll see this a lot with athletes. What are they doing? They are transforming their bodies by getting into a place of discomfort. And that's kind of what our lives are. We are all our own athletes. We're all our own brand. We're all our own unique brand, honestly. So how do you want your brand to be? What do you want your brand to look like? How do you want to feel about your brand? And when I say this, I mean you and yourself. How do you want to feel about yourself? Do you want to feel like, okay, I've done enough? Do you want to feel like, oh, there's so much more I want to do? Do you want to feel like, this isn't really my job? Do you want to feel like, I've made a difference today and that's all that matters? I made a change and that's good. Well, you can feel all these things simultaneously. You can, that's the whole gamut of human emotion, is we're coming at it from a whole bunch of different places. But when we're able to get away from the reactionary, when we're able to get away from the things that are causing conflict, and that is reaction, not so much response, but reaction, and also being able to learn how do we accept response from others without getting all, upset. There's a lot of people that at this moment in time have a very difficult time with feedback. I mean, it is worse than ever these days. People really, can be very sensitive, or a lot of times what it is it's a miscommunication. That's most of the time what it is. It's just miscommunication between two parties. But, seeing the division and stuff that comes up, I try to focus in on the unity. I try to focus in on, okay, what's something that can unify people? What's something that we can all get behind? What's something that you can do for yourself today to really get behind yourself and to be supportive of yourself? What's something that you can do today to further your message, to further your mission, to further your brand? Whatever that brand is for you, because you are your own brand. That's probably one of the best ways to see it. That doesn't mean that you have to stay the brand that you currently are. Brands are always changing and transforming and melding into something else to be more palatable for other people, to be more palatable for themselves, just changing with the times. because again, everything evolves, everything's changing. Nothing stays the same. People's behavior can be very predictive. You can predict people's behavior, especially when you know them very well. But when it comes to that, you also want to give people the opportunity and the allowingness that, hey, it is possible for these people to change as well. Someone that maybe you think wouldn't want to change, or someone in your life that's given you a lot of difficulties that you've had a hard time forgiving, right? We all have that person or people in our lives that maybe they have done awful things to you. But unless you come at it from a place of forgiveness and a place of understanding, okay, well, yes, this did occur. It wasn't good for me. It hurt me. But am I going to allow it to derail my life? Because that's where some people are right now. Some people are in a place of derailment, where they're stuck, they're stagnant, where they don't see a way out of it, or they are seeing their way out, but it's taking longer than they want it to, or they're choosing to give up sometimes. I think that happens a lot of the time is when you're doing a lot of self-work like this, a lot of times you're so willing and ready to give up. You know, you're so willing and ready to give up because you don't really see yourself as the investment that you should. And I'm not talking about investment only financially. I'm talking about the energy that you're allowing your body to accept and experience, the energy that you're allowing your mind to experience, the way that you're spending your time, who you're spending your time with, and what it is that you're doing on this planet. And I'm not trying to sound all like, oh, it's the end of the world, we have to decide what we're going to be. No, that's the beauty of it. When you're really confident in your higher power, when you really feel as though you have a connection, when you really feel as though you have people that have you, that you have a good support system, everything will fall into place so easily. So for example, I offered to do a song for my parents' church. I offered to sing at a banquet of theirs, and I didn't expect them to actually say yes, that they wanted me to sing. I thought it was just going to be something that was going to be an offer that I made but not be really taken up, and it was. So I've been practicing that song now for a little bit. It's something that I'm very comfortable doing, but I was very surprised at this opportunity that presented itself, and it just kept bothering me because no one was volunteering to provide musical services, even though that's what this person wanted. And I was like, you know what, let me just offer this and just see what happens. And so I'm looking forward to that. I'm nervous about it, but it was doing something that was outside of my usual scope. I am a musician. I am an instrumentalist. So I was really raised to be an entertainer, in all honesty. But I just couldn't get over, my speech impediment. There's a lot of things that I couldn't get over, but I was probably meant for entertainment, in all honesty, just based on what I was interested in, what I continue to be interested in. Because I'm just like everybody else. I still think a lot about my fashion choices. I still think a lot about what other women are thinking. I still think a lot about how I can be more relatable, and I'm just like everybody else, right? Everyone has these kinds of thoughts. Everyone has thoughts like this. Everyone has a little bit of self-doubt sometimes. I don't really experience that all too often these days. What I do experience is, okay, if I feel like I'm not spending my time the way I want to, then I'm going to change it. And that's a big thing for 2025 for me personally, and what I would like for it to be for this entire channel is, okay, in this moment, I'm not feeling the way I want to feel. So what am I going to do to change that? Or what am I going to do to allow myself to experience this discomfort and then to allow myself to release it? Because sometimes the best therapy is exposure therapy. And it's hard. It's something that's very difficult to do. It's something that's especially difficult to do when you're trying to do it on your own. And that's why I wanted to go into coaching, is because I wanted to provide a space that was available for people, that they would be able to get the help that they needed, but also not feel as though like they're crazy people, because there's a lot of people that just don't understand how to communicate well, or there's some people that just, you know, lose their patience maybe a little bit too easily, or there's people that have been sent messages their whole lives of they are not worthy, they are not good enough, they are not able enough, they are not positive enough, they aren't pretty enough, they aren't whatever enough. But when your mind starts to think that way and starts to go down that path, it's really easy to change it. It's really easy to go ahead and be like, you know what, no, I'm going to change this way of thinking, because the way that I'm thinking right now is limiting the things that I can be. The way that I'm thinking right now is limiting the possibilities that I have and the things that I can do and the things that I can experience. I am not going to let myself have these limiting beliefs, because they are destructive to my psyche and they're destructive to myself. And I want to believe in myself. And sometimes that's what it is. It's just I want to believe in myself today. It's just the ability to get out of bed, brush your teeth, go to your job, do your work, raise your kids. It's taking that one step and then keeping on going and not changing your course unless you feel like you want to or you need to. It's okay with understanding that everything is an experiment. When you see it, everything is an experiment, things are a lot easier. You know, it's a lot easier to understand, like, oh, that didn't work out, but that didn't work out for a reason. It was an experiment that I wanted to do. You know, it's very easy to take accountability when you're speaking in words like this, when you're saying, oh yeah, I'm going to be accountable for that. Oh yeah, this is just an experiment. This is just something that I'm doing in this moment just to see where it's going to take me or where it's going to go, or to make myself feel better, or whatever the reason may be. There's going to be tons of reasons for everything that we do, and we can't always take every little second and dissect it and break it all down, because sometimes that's not the best thing for people. Breaking down something over and over again, yes, repetition does build efficiency, in my opinion, but there's so much repetition sometimes. You just need to break loose and be wild and be free. And sometimes you don't have to be able to always be focusing on, okay, well, what is making me well only? But also, what is allowing me to be wild? What is my bad side? What is my darker side? What about my energy that is a little darker, that's a little bit more mysterious, that's a little bit more alluring, maybe, right? Being someone that's a little bit more mysterious. That's something that you can change at any moment. You can just kind of take on the vibe, take on the whatever it is. And you can change, because that's what everybody does. Everybody's vibes can change, their mood can change. You can understand this and remember this probably from being in school, where someone would come to sit at the table and it would just change the whole vibe of it, whether for good or for bad. And that's what we are. We're all just changing the vibe with everything that we're doing, with everything that we're saying, or maybe we're not saying or doing anything at all and we're in the contemplation mode. And that's where we're going to grow, and that's where we're going to have a lot of opportunities to grow and to be our best selves and to be better than we are today. So hopefully, as always, authenticity is at the forefront for you today, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and or join, as it is popping off at the other tiers. And I look forward to the next video and or live stream. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Be well, stay wild as well.